It is a Bigger, Better, Big Time morning show with Brian O'Brien on 106.3 FM, 18 minutes after 8. Glad to have you here this morning. If for some reason you're having any difficulty getting us, you just need to go to www.thebig1063.com. If for any reason you can't get us on the radio, could be that the boss doesn't want you to listen to the radio while you're at work. But I do have somebody important on the phone with us right now, Senator Rand Paul. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good to be with you.
And good to be with you. Now, I know that you're used to some of the bigwigs at Fox and CNN and some of the more higher credibility networks. This is just a local station that in southeast Kentucky that's glad to have you on, and appreciate the time that you've given me this morning.
No, I heard this was a must-be, much more important than those other stations. And actually, we really are seeking out stations around the state to try to get the message out of what we're trying to do for our taxpayers in Kentucky.
Now, with that said, yesterday, as I was doing some preparation for the limited amount of time we have with you this morning, I asked a basic question. I've got several thousand people that follow me on Facebook, and it's been a big tool for us promoting the station. Basically, what I asked was, Americans, regardless of their race, color, sex, or creed, they're peeved about something the government is doing. Nobody can necessarily be happy with the way that the economy is going, but what do you see as a senator of our government as the biggest challenges we're facing, and then in your mind, the easiest way to fix them? I know that's a pretty big blanket statement, but...
Well, I think the biggest problem we face is the debt, and I think it's not just that we're passing this on to our kids and our grandkids. The debt is hurting us right now, and the reason the debt hurts us, it's not just a number, it's $1.5 trillion each year, but that debt is adding to unemployment. And that debt, when we pay for it, is adding to rising prices. So if you're working to try to get ahead and most of your paycheck goes to buying food and gas for your family, gas prices have doubled in the last year. Food prices are rising. The reason those prices go up is because the government prints money to pay for the debt. They pay for some of the debt out of taxes, but they print money. When they print money, that devalues the money you have, and it causes prices to rise. The people that get hurt the hardest are either the working class or senior citizens who have a fixed income.
Now, with that said, if let's just say that you're made president tomorrow, what would be the first thing you would do in order to fix some of these big problems that are causing people to decide between medicine, gas, or food?
Quit adding to the debt. You got to quit adding to the debt. If your family has to cut back, let's say you get a pay cut at work because you're not entertaining us as well on the radio. If you get a pay cut, you'll cut back your expenditures, and that's what a nation needs to do. But we haven't been doing it. Our revenue is down. We aren't bringing in as much taxes as we were because of the recession, but our spending has gone up. So our income has gone down, and we've dramatically increased our spending. That is just very, very irresponsible as a nation, and we've got to change our ways. Okay.
And with all due respect, the average Joe hears a lot. You hear a lot during elections. You hear a lot from folks who have been in office for a while. And we kept, from time to time, we get these promises that seem a little outlandish. How can our government start to follow through on some of the things that it promised years ago?
Well, one of the ways we can is by fixing the entitlement programs. The entitlement programs are about 55 to 60% of what the budget is each year. And what is happening now is we have less workers. When Social Security started, we had about 50 workers for each retiree. Now it's down to about 3 workers for each retiree, and we're headed towards a time when there's only going to be 1 worker for each retiree. And so what happens is we've got the baby boomers retiring and not enough workers to pay for Social Security. So we need to reform these so they can continue to exist. Otherwise, they're all going belly up if we don't fix them.
Okay. Now let's go ahead and get a little bit closer to home with Kentucky. One of the biggest things on the minds of folks, especially in southeast Kentucky, is coal. And I know that our governor has been taking a lot of heat. Someone had said that he is against coal, and of course that's been proven that was a false statement. My question to you, I guess, would be, how do you feel the EPA is treating the state of Kentucky right now?
Horribly, and the EPA needs to be restrained because the EPA has gone crazy, and we've appointed people to run the EPA who are basically environmental extremists. And, you know, when President Obama ran, he said explicitly, and there's no question about what he said he would increase the cost of mining coal to such an extent that he would bankrupt the coal industry. And that's his goal. I mean, it's not something he's hiding. It's his goal because he believes we should use windmills and solar panels. But you've seen how that's working. He gave some of his buddies $500 million, some campaign contributors, $500 million to start this company called Solyndra. Mm-hmm. And here's a good example of how much money a $500 million is. That's more than Kentucky gets to pave and improve her roads each year. We get about $420 million. He gave $500 million to one company that ended up going bankrupt, and we lost all of that money. And it just so happens, the coincidence is that company was run by people who were big campaign contributors of his.
Interesting. Yeah, I was listening to a talk show that comes out of, I guess it was California, and listened to that last night, and they were talking about, just for an example, and I'll keep this quick, but talking about, you know, everybody's doing this green thing that's happening right now. You throw the word green on something, and it's supposed to be more acceptable, but yet they have completely destroyed in Vermont. Doesn't have anything to do with us, but in Vermont they took mountains down to put these huge wind turbines, and come to find out that the wind isn't even blowing in the same direction it did when they did their research. So the turbines are just sitting there, and they destroyed a ton of forest land to get those turbines up to the top of the mountains.
Well, I'll give you an example of some of the craziness they do. The Department of Energy puts these little energy seals on things, these little stars that says they're energy efficient.
Right.
And we got suspicious that maybe they were just slapping a star on anything. So we had the Investigator General send over to them an alarm clock, a gasoline-powered alarm clock. And it was an alarm clock duct-taped, I'm not kidding you, duct-taped to a gas can. And they sent it over there, and it was within 24 hours given a star of approval. And it was just a joke, and it was given a star of approval. They also had a air cleaner that was a feather duster that was duct-taped to some kind of canister, and that one got approved as well.
Can Rand Paul single-handedly fix the EPA?
Well, you know, the thing is we're trying hard. We have one bill called the RAINS Act, and I've co-sponsored this with Congressman Davis from Northern Kentucky, and this bill would say that any new regulation that's going to cost over $100 million to the economy should have to come back and be voted on by Congress. I think that's what's most appalling, is that an entire industry, the coal industry, can be shut down, not even by elected officials, but by bureaucrats who you can't get rid of. And so these bureaucrats stay year, decade after decade, and nobody can unelect them because they don't run for office. So what we're trying to do is take that power back from the EPA and put it in the hands of the legislature, because if your congressman or senator votes against the interests of Kentucky, then you can bring them home.
Okay. Last week, I did a little research on a bill that you put for folks to kind of take a look at in Congress. I personally thought it was a great bill because it was going to restrict the amount of money that we were sending overseas. And, you know, earlier this morning, I talked about the fact that I think that America is really starting to wear itself out helping everyone else out and yet not paying attention to its own problems. But the bill you introduced was voted down. Why do you think it was voted down for us helping everyone else and yet we're struggling?
Well, the interesting thing is foreign aid, which is welfare we give to other countries, it's about $30 billion. It's enough to really get started repairing bridges and fixing bridges in our country. If you poll the American people, Kentucky voters also, 77% of them think that we should cut some of that foreign aid and bring some of that money back home. But I got only 20 votes in the Senate because they make it very, very emotional. They try to say it's our national defense and all this, and it has nothing. It's not military spending. It's basically welfare. And a lot of it is stolen by the leaders of the countries, like Mubarak, who ran Egypt for 30 years. He was said to have stolen at least $5 to $10 billion out of the $30 billion we sent him.
Oh, great.
Same way all throughout Africa. It's estimated that 70% of the funds that are sent to Africa are stolen by corrupt leaders before it ever gets to the people. So year after year, we send billions of our dollars, hard-earned dollars from America, and many of these countries still have no running water, no electricity, but the leaders of these countries have mansions in Paris and some of the largest homes in the world because they basically steal money that the U.S. taxpayer sends overseas.
Wow. I meant to ask you a question just a second ago, and I know you have another interview with our friend Brian Sizemore out of AANV. But when we were talking about the EPA, what is your stance on mountaintop removal?
I think that if you own your land and you don't pollute your neighbor's land, that it's your choice how you manage your land. I've been out there and will be out there in a couple of weeks to go to Hindman, where they have a sports complex up on the reclaimed land and where the elk have been reintroduced. And the people who complain and tell people that they can't do that to their land, most of them have never been out there.
Sure.
And I was at a major newspaper in Kentucky, and everybody was complaining about mountaintop removal, and I said, have you ever been there? Not one of the reporters had ever been there. So I think personally you cannot pollute your neighbor's land, but if you're flattening your land and you're not doing anything to your neighbor's land, I see no problem with that.
And in the beginning of this conversation, and I'll leave you with this one question. We talked about what it could take to get this nation turned around. Obviously, at the end of next year, we have another big decision. Several years ago, we made a decision to have our current administration. We're dealing with repercussions left and right on that. I know that one of your family members may be a candidate. Let's say that your dad was not a candidate. Is there anybody that you can see as a forerunner in here that you would like to see in the White House?
You know, I am kind of biased. I have to go home for Thanksgiving, so I have to be a supporter of my dad, Ron Paul, who I think's really changed the debate. As far as other candidates, I like a lot of the other people on the stage. I think almost any of them, really probably every one of them, would be better than the current administration. And the main thing is what we need in the White House now is somebody who's friendly to business. I mean, to have elected a president who says he's basically going to shut down an entire industry in the United States, like the coal industry, that is something that, you know, not only is wrong for Kentucky, but 50% of Americans get their electricity from coal. And so for him to be so irresponsible as to say he's going to bankrupt an industry like the coal industry, you know, I've been to the eastern part of our state many times, and it's not just the people who work in the mines. You know, you go to Walmart, you work in Walmart, or you work at any store up there, those places will not exist if you get rid of all the coal mining jobs.
Absolutely. Well, sir, I appreciate your time this morning. I know you have other things you need to take care of. What's the next step for Rand Paul? What's the next issue for you that you're going to be tackling?
Well, we're going back Monday, and the thing I've been promoting for a few weeks now is something called the penny plan. And the penny plan is where we promote a budget that would cut 1% each year for about 7 years and would balance the budget. And it's amazing that that's all it would take, because you have to just cut all of the, right now everything goes up automatically 7% a year. But if we just have a real cut of 1%, meaning you'd spend next year 1% less than this year, you could actually balance your budget in 7 years. And I think it's just hard for the other side to argue against the reasonableness of that.
All right. No endorsement of any other candidates yet, huh?
I'm still rooting for Ron Paul. He's doing pretty well.
All right. Well, Mr. Rand Paul, Senator, we appreciate your time, sir. And tell the folks on the next station you hear, tell Brian Sizemore that we said hello from Southeast Kentucky.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. All right, ladies and gentlemen, there he is, Senator Rand Paul. This is 106.3 FM.